Alright, so first, let's start off with 24. The setup I use for this is I first jump mostly straight up. I input right slightly, but not too much. I mostly jump straight up and grapple right at the start. And then I swing from this block and try to aim my second grapple so that it hits the bottom left corner of the second block. And when I hit the bottom left corner, I hold down so I get the longest grapple possible. I hit the right wall for maybe like half a second or less, maybe like a quarter of a second. And once I swing back, you can see that I get a decent amount of time under the block, and then it's just eyeballing and doing the hyperspeed grapple. There are some things to note here. For visual cues on the second block, you can see that in this situation, I didn't exactly hit the bottom left corner. I hit a little bit above the corner. And when you hit like a little bit above the corner or a little bit to the right of the corner, like on the bottom of the block, you get slightly less time. You get slightly less time under the first block, so you get stuck for less time. So you need to release your hyperspeed earlier. If I had hit the exact bottom left corner here, I would have been stuck under this first block for longer because my grapple is a little bit closer to the first block. And so just like make sure you recognize where you hit on the second block so that you know how much time you'll be stuck so you can react to when to release the hyperspeed. Right, so now for 43, I start by doing a full hop directly upright, and I hold upright. And then I try to aim my grapple for the top left corner of this block. You see I didn't really get exactly the top left corner, but it's close enough, so it's not a big deal. And after I hit my grapple, I immediately release right. And releasing right is really important because it centers the robot so that when you release your grapple on this block, you know you'll be below the block so that you can get stuck under it. So you must release right after you get the grapple onto the second block. And then I hold up for a certain amount of time. This timing is kind of intuitive. It's hard to really explain, but you want to hold up. You want to hold up and keep your grapple until your robot sort of centers itself back into the middle of the block. So if you see here, I hold up and until the robot sort of swings back to the middle, and then you want to let go Z and re-grapple instantly. And then if you have fast enough reaction time, you can adjust your hyperspeed to where you release. So if you release pretty early, and let's say you release not really directly under the block, but more to the right of the block, then you'll have to release your hyperspeed earlier because you'll be stuck less. And if you release too late, then you're just going to be stuck under the block forever and you won't get the hyperspeed. Oh yeah, and then you also have to be ready to react. Most of the time you'll hit this top block here, and then your vertical velocity will get capped, and you'll be able to grapple onto this block. In rare situations, you like actually shoot past the block and you hit the ceiling, and then you have to maybe grapple again or something. But usually you'll just hit this top block and you can just grapple your way into the end zone. Right. So for 46, I again start with a full hop upright, and I again try to hit the top left corner of this first block. Here I got a pretty good grapple, almost exactly top left corner. And then this part is, this grapple is like the important part. Before, what I would do is after I would get this grapple onto the top left block, I would sort of just release at some point and then grapple the fourth block and see if, somehow I can get the hyperspeed. But what I found to be a little more consistent, even if it's a little slower, is if I grapple the block and then I keep my grapple for a really long time. So you see I'm keeping my grapple almost until like really high. So I release pretty late. I hold up and keep my grapple until I'm pretty close with the fourth block, so that when I release my grapple, I grapple really close to the fourth block. And then this timing is kind of odd. Once I hit the fourth block, I keep grappling it. I hold grapple for maybe like quarter of a second. You don't want to grapple the fourth block and let go immediately because that won't move you forward horizontally enough to hit the bar, and so you might re-grapple the fourth block. So instead, after I do this long grapple and put my robot really close to the block, I grapple onto the fourth block, hold for about a quarter of a second, maybe a little more, a little less, and then I release. And then this is going to be variable. When you grapple onto the vertical bar here, sometimes you're going to get, I don't really know how it works, but sometimes you're going to get more, you're going to move faster horizontally when you're stuck, and sometimes you'll move pretty slow horizontally. This time I got lucky. I moved like at a pretty normal horizontal speed under the block. So I just sort of eyeball it and release at the right time. And this time it was right here. I released and I was able to get the boost. But sometimes like you can get unstuck as early as like here. Sometimes you can get unstuck as late as like all the way down in the blast zone. So yeah, that's the guide for my setups.